The ranch had learned his loneliness the way the land learns drought, slowly, without complaint. Elias' coal rose before the sun, same as he had for years. He fed the horses, split kindling, checked the fence line where the creek liked to sneak past his posts. His hands were scarred and steady, his beard threaded with gray, though he wasn't yet old. People in town called him kind, dependable, quiet. They didn't call him lonely, but the land knew. The empty chair at his table knew. The way the house settled at night, sighing into silence, knew. That was why he'd sent for a bride. Not for romance, not for fantasy, just for company. For a woman who wanted a steady roof, honest work, and a man who would never raise a hand in anger. Elias had written his letter plainly. No promises beyond respect, and a shared life built carefully, day by day. He'd expected a tired woman, perhaps wary, perhaps hopeful. He had not expected bruises. The wagon arrived near dusk, dust curling low around its wheels. Elias stood by the hitching post, hat in hand, heart steady but uncertain. When she stepped down, the driver barely slowing, Elias saw at once the yellowed mark along her cheekbone, the way her sleeve tugged down to hide what lay beneath. Her eyes flicked everywhere but his, like a startled deer deciding which direction held fewer threats. She was smaller than he'd imagined, thinner, as if life had been taking pieces of her for years and never giving them back. She clutched a small carpet bag to her chest. When she finally looked at him, her gaze held no expectation, only fear. "I'm Elias Cole," he said gently. "You must be—" She swallowed. "Anna." A pause. I brought this." She pressed a folded paper into his hand. Her fingers trembled when they brushed his skin. He didn't open it right away. He didn't want her to think she was being judged. Instead, he nodded toward the house. "You look cold. Let's get you inside." She hesitated, just a breath too long. That was when he understood this was no ordinary arrival. Inside, he poured her tea and turned his back while she removed her coat. He heard the soft catch of her breath when she sat, as if bracing for something that never came. Only then did he open the note. It was short, careful, written by someone who had learned that too many words could be dangerous. "I am not safe. Please don't send me back. I will work. I will leave if you ask. I just need time." Elias folded the paper slowly. His jaw tightened, not with anger, but resolve. When he looked up, Anna was watching him like a verdict waited in his eyes. He set the note on the table and met her gaze. "You're not in trouble," he said, "and you're not expected to be anyone you're not ready to be." Her breath shuddered. "I sent for a wife," he continued, choosing each word with care. "But what you need right now is safety. So that's what you'll have. A roof, food, work if you want it, space if you need it." Tears welled despite her effort to stop them. "You don't owe me anything," he added quietly. "Not your body, not your story, not your fear." She pressed her lips together, nodding once, as if afraid her voice might break her apart. Elias stood and gestured down the hall. "There's a room at the end. Locks from the inside. Supper will be ready when you are." As he turned back to the stove, he said the words that would follow her into sleep that night, and into the life she hadn't yet dared to imagine. "You're safe here. You're not alone anymore." And for the first time in a very long while, Anna believed it might be true. The first night passed without sound. Elias lay awake in his own bed, staring at the dark rafters, listening the way a man does when he has promised safety and intends to keep it. He heard no footsteps, no muffled sobbing, only the slow breath of the house settling around its new inhabitant. Toward morning, he finally slept. Anna did not. She lay rigid beneath the quilt, fully dressed, boots set neatly by the door. The lock Elias had mentioned sat solid beneath her fingers. She checked it twice, then a third time. Only when dawn brushed pale light across the window did her breathing ease. Just a little. No one came. That alone felt like a miracle. When she finally emerged, the smell of coffee and fresh bread met her. Elias stood at the counter, sleeves rolled, movements unhurried. He didn't turn when he heard her step. He didn't startle her by greeting her too loudly. He simply said, "Morning. Eat if you're hungry." She took a seat at the far end of the table, perching like she might need to flee. He set a plate between them and then moved away again, giving her the space to decide. The bread was warm. She hadn't expected that. Warm things belong to better lives. She ate slowly, waiting for the price to be named. None came. Over the next days, a pattern formed, not rigid, not spoken aloud, but steady. Elias rose early. He left the door unlatched so she would hear him go and know she was alone. He worked the outer fields until mid-morning, giving her time to wake without fear. When he returned, he'd ask, not tell, if she wished to help. If you feel like it, he always said. Some days she did. Some days she didn't. On the days she stayed inside, she scrubbed the already clean table, folded and refolded linens, stared out the window at the open land, and used to a horizon that didn't close in on her. On the days she joined him, he handed her small tasks, feeding the chickens, gathering eggs, mending a loose seam on a saddlebag. Never once did he stand too close. She noticed everything. How he set his hat down before entering the house, like he didn't want to bring the roughness of the world inside. How he cleared his throat before speaking if she hadn't seen him approach. How he never asked where the bruises had come from. At night, they ate together in a companionable quiet that felt heavy at first, then gradually less so. She learned he preferred stew thick and plain. He learned she drank her tea weak, with too much sugar, as if sweetness were something she had once been denied. Sometimes she flinched without meaning to, at the crack of wood in the fire, at a sudden movement. Elias never commented. He simply adjusted, his body learning the careful language of her fear. The bruises faded in shades, purple to yellow to nothing at all, but something inside her remained tender, like skin that hadn't yet toughened after a long winter. One evening, rain pinned the world in place. Elias mended tack by lamplight while Anna sat nearby, needle moving through cloth. The silence felt different then. Not empty, not dangerous. "Did you sleep?" he asked softly, not looking up. She nodded. "A little." "That's good." No more was required. When she retired for the night, she paused at the end of the hall. The door to his room was closed. As always, she touched the wall, grounding herself in the solidness of it. In her room, she left her boots by the bed instead of the door. It was a small thing, but it felt like a beginning. Outside, summer leaned toward autumn, and the ranch, quiet, patient, and kind, began to do what it did best. It held. By the time the first leaves began to yellow along the creek, Anna had learned the shape of the days. Morning light through the kitchen window. The rhythm of chores broken by shared meals. Elias's presence, steady as a fence post, never leaning in unless invited. The ranch no longer felt like borrowed ground. It felt known. She slept through most nights now. When dreams did come, they loosened their grip faster, releasing her back into the quiet safety of the room at the end of the hall. One afternoon, she surprised herself by humming while she worked. The sound caught in her throat when she realized what she was doing, but it didn't disappear. Elias glanced up from the corral, eyes warm but questioning. He didn't comment. He never did. He simply smiled, small and private, and returned to his task. They began talking more, not about the past, but about ordinary things. Weather, crops, how the chickens had learned to bully the dog. Once, while shelling peas on the porch, Elias spoke of the house as it had been when he first built it. Just one room then. No porch. No laughter. "I didn't plan on staying alone forever," he said, fingers moving steadily. Life just kept happening. She understood that kind of truth. That night, by lamplight, she asked him why he'd chosen a mail-order bride instead of a woman from town. He didn't answer right away. He set his cup down, thoughtful. Town feels like a place people watch each other. Out here, a person can be what they are without explanation. She nodded. It was the first time she felt seen without being examined. Work drew them together in quiet partnership. They repaired fencing after a storm, hands moving in practiced cooperation. Once, when she slipped in the mud, Elias caught her elbow, gentle, immediate, and then gone. He stepped back at once, apology in his eyes. "It's all right," she said before she could stop herself. He froze, then nodded. Thank you for telling me. Something shifted after that. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but like soil finally soft enough to accept seed. One evening, after supper, she lingered at the table while he washed dishes. The fire burned low. Shadows stretched long across the floor. You could have sent me away, she said quietly. When you saw me, when you read the note. He dried his hands, turned to face her fully. I could have, he agreed, but I wouldn't have slept well afterward. She swallowed. Most men would have expected something. His gaze didn't waver. Most men aren't me. The truth of it settled into her bones. Winter came early that year. Snow crept over the land, muffling sound, drawing the world inward. They spent more time inside, sharing the warmth of the stove, talking in the evenings. Elias told her about the first horse he'd ever owned. She told him how she used to read by candlelight as a girl, before fear had crowded out small joys. She didn't tell him everything. Not yet, but she laughed more. She met his eyes. She reached for things without flinching. One night, as the wind howled outside, she spoke words she hadn't planned. I feel different here. He waited, like I can breathe. He nodded, voice low. That's what home should do. Later, alone in her room, Anna pressed her hand to her chest, marveling at the steady beat beneath it. Trust had not arrived all at once. It had come the way the frontier always did, inch by inch, earned through patience. And somewhere between shared work and quiet evenings, she realized something that frightened her almost as much as it comforted her. She was no longer just being protected. She was beginning to belong. The first sign came on a clear winter morning, when the world looked too calm to carry bad news. Elias had gone into town for supplies, leaving Anna with a list and the promise he'd be back before dark. She spent the morning kneading bread, the familiar motion soothing, the house warm and alive around her. She was brushing flour from her hands when she heard it. A knock, not the gentle tap of a neighbor, not the hesitant sound of someone unsure of their welcome. This knock was firm, claiming. Her breath stopped. For a moment, she told herself it was nothing, just a traveler, just someone lost. But fear had a memory all its own, and her body remembered this sound. She did not open the door. The knock came again, harder. Anna, a man's voice called. I know you're in there. Her knees weakened. The room seemed to tilt, the warmth of the house vanishing in an instant. She backed away, every instinct screaming to run, to pack what little she had and disappear before the damage could reach Elias. When the voice faded, she sank into a chair, shaking. She didn't cry. Tears felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. By the time Elias returned, dusk had already fallen. He found her sitting rigid at the table, coat on, carpet bag packed at her feet. He stopped short. What happened? She looked up at him, eyes wide and ashamed. He found me. That was all she said. It was enough. Elias set his hat down slowly. Did he come inside? She shook her head. Did he touch you? No. Good. His jaw tightened, not with rage, but purpose. Then we'll handle this. She stood abruptly. You shouldn't have to. This is my trouble. I'll leave tonight. He stepped into her path, not blocking, just present. Solid. No one is chasing you out of my home. Her voice broke. He won't stop. He never does. And if he hurts you, he won't. Elias said quietly, because I won't let him. She stared at him, torn between hope and terror. You don't understand what he's like. Then help me understand, he said. Or don't. Either way, you're not facing this alone. The next day, Elias rode into town with her at his side. The sheriff listened carefully, eyes narrowing as she spoke, haltingly at first, then with growing strength. There were records, whispers, a trail of harm left behind that others had been too afraid to name. When the man returned, expecting silence, he found resistance instead. Elias stood between him and Anna, voice calm, hand steady. You have no claim here, he said. You best turn around. The man sneered, but the law stood firmer than he'd expected. He left under watchful eyes, anger burning but restrained, for now. That night, Anna sat on the edge of her bed, shaken but still standing. Elias lingered in the doorway, giving her space even now. "I can still go," she said softly, "before this becomes worse." He shook his head. "You're welcome to leave if that's what you choose. But don't do it because you think you're a burden." She looked up at him, tears spilling freely now. "Why are you doing this?" He answered without hesitation. "Because you matter." The words broke something open inside her. For the first time, she didn't pack her bag tighter. She unpacked it, and as the wind rattled the windows and the danger receded into the dark, Anna realized she had crossed a line she could never return from. She was no longer running. She was staying, by choice. Spring came gently, as if the land itself wished to be careful with her. Snow melted into soft earth, and green pushed through places that had looked dead only weeks before. Anna moved through the house with an ease she hadn't known she possessed. The past no longer hovered at her shoulder every moment. It lingered farther away now, still real, but no longer in control. So did her feelings for Elias. They were no longer something she could ignore. She noticed the way he waited for her, without making her feel watched. The way his voice softened when he spoke her name. The way he made space for her opinions, her preferences, her choices. Small freedoms that added up to something large and precious. One afternoon, while they planted seedlings together, the truth rose up unbidden. "I don't want to leave," she said. He stilled, careful not to startle her. "You don't have to. That's not what I mean." She wiped dirt from her hands, heart pounding. "I don't want to leave because I want to stay with you." He turned then, eyes searching her face, not daring to assume. "Anna, I'm not afraid anymore," she said, voice shaking but sure. "Not of you, not of this life." Silence stretched between them, heavy and hopeful. "I've loved you quietly," Elias admitted at last. "I didn't want to ask for something you weren't ready to give." She stepped closer, just a step, but it felt monumental. "I'm ready now, not because I need protection, but because I choose you." They were married on a clear morning beneath the open sky. There was no hurry, no spectacle, just a few neighbors, the soft lowing of cattle in the distance, and the wind carrying the promise of new beginnings. Anna walked toward Elias with steady steps, her hand warm in his when they joined it together. When he kissed her, it was tender, reverent, like a vow renewed rather than claimed. That night, she shared his bed for the first time without fear. The closeness was gentle, patient, full of whispered reassurances and unspoken understanding. Love came to her the way safety had, slowly, respectfully, and on her terms. She slept deeply, wrapped in his arms, knowing this time there would be no running. She had chosen her life, and he had chosen her right back. Years passed like the steady turning of the seasons, each one folding into the next with quiet grace. The ranch grew fuller, fields blooming, fences mended, livestock thriving. Their house filled with laughter and warmth, its walls holding the stories of two lives woven tightly together. One crisp autumn morning, as the golden light spilled over the hills, Anna held their baby for the first time, a small, fragile bundle with wide, curious eyes. The weight of the child in her arms was heavier than any fear she had ever carried, and yet lighter than hope itself. Elias stood nearby, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he touched the infant's tiny fingers. "Our home," he said softly, "is more than land and shelter now. It's love carried forward." Anna smiled through tears, feeling the promise of that love steady and sure beneath her skin. The past, the bruises, the running, the fear, had not been erased, but they no longer defined her. Together, they had built something stronger, a family, a sanctuary, a place where healing was not just possible but inevitable. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with soft pinks and golds, Elias took Anna's hand and led her outside. The child slept peacefully inside, cradled by a nursemaid. He looked into her eyes, steady and clear. "You're not alone anymore," he said, voice carrying the weight of every quiet day, every shared meal, every hard-earned moment of trust. And in that moment, beneath the vast, endless sky, Anna knew she had found more than a home. She had found belonging. She had found love. and she had found herself.